Alright, what's up fellas? Welcome back to another video. This one's going to have a ton of value in it and it's super specific. So if you're clicking on this and you feel like you want to be able to add the sweeping slider, I'm going to give you a bunch of different tips, grips, cues, some of my secrets that have helped me learn the pitch and throw it effectively for the last couple years in different levels of pro baseball. This pitch I kind of had a love-hate relationship with. For a while, and it was just hard for me to learn. It took a couple of years, so keep that in mind as you're on your journey learning it. A lot of times you're not just gonna like randomly throw it and you have it immediately with some of these new pitches. This one took me a minute, but when it clicked, it did kind of like fully click and I was able to use it, but I'm still growing in ways that I use it and how I use it and locations that I throw it to and feels. So that never stops. But I'm really excited for this video. We're going to go over, if you're a candidate to throw the sweeping slider and why you should throw it. We're going to go over grips and cues with the ball here and kind of show you the different ways people can get the desired movement. We're going to go over the numbers that you want to look for it to qualify as a sweeper and how it ties into your arsenal based on the other pitches that you have. We're going to go over the common pitfalls, basically the things that I see that I dealt with and I see other people that are learning the pitch go through, just so you can be aware of those as you're going into it. And then we're going to talk about how to use it finally. The how to use it part is going to be extremely important because it doesn't matter how good a pitch it is, if you're using it improperly, it's going to set yourself up for poor results. All right, so first we'll talk about what a sweeper is and why they are valuable. So for me, I don't know. There's no full definition of exactly what a sweeping slider is, but for me it's going to be a pitch that has over 10 inches on average of glove side movement, so going to the left if you're a lefty and going to the right if you're a righty, and plus or minus 5 vert or 5 depth for the vertical break of the pitch. And traditionally they're about 10 inches, or not 10 miles an hour off of your four seam fastball. Depending on if you have a supination bias, some guys might be able to get it closer to like 8 or 7, and like guys that are more pronation bias a lot of times don't even throw a sweeper, but if they do, it normally ends up being on the slower side, closer to 10, sometimes even like 12 miles an hour off their four seam. So before we go fully into it, this video is for subscribers only, so if you're watching the channel and you're not subbed, fellas, make sure you do that. Turn on post notifications. I drop a bunch of unique knowledge on here. Basically, I try to create videos that I wish I could have seen as a young baseball player, and cut out all the eyewash from them and just deliver stuff that's like actually going to move the needle for your guys' development. So the reason why this pitch burst on the scene and has been super popular over the last couple of years, and a lot of organizations are trying to teach it, is it limits hard contact like very well, more than like almost every other pitch to the same sided hitter. And if we can limit hard contact, that's over 50% of the battle as a pitcher. If we have a pitch that we can throw and 70% of the time it's put in play at like under 85 miles an hour exit velocity, it's going to be really hard for them to string together success against you as a pitcher if they're putting the ball in play at those low exit velocities. And it's also good at generating whiffs, but it really shines about limiting barrels, essentially, but only to same-sided hitters. It doesn't apply if you're a lefty throwing it to a righty or a righty throwing it to a lefty, unless you have a really outlier one. And so do you need one? This is an interesting question because it's so nuanced for who you are, but I'll give a couple different examples. If you're a high school kid and you're throwing low 80s, I would say just focus on velocity for now. And if you don't have a single breaking ball, I would focus on throwing a gyro slider, which is the simplest slider. But essentially, if you're a high school kid and you're still velocity is your focus, I wouldn't let you trying to learn the sweeper derail you from that. Maybe you could try it, but don't make it be like the bulk of your workload. Just try to throw harder and have one solid offering. If it turns out to be the sweeper, then great. But if you already have a good changeup or a curveball or something, I would just stick with those for now. And then once you get your velo a little bit higher, work on adding it if you would like. Now, if you are, let's say, a righty and you're committed, you're going to play college next year or in a year or two, and you're in high school and you already throw like mid to upper 80s and you throw like a changeup or a curveball, I would really recommend adding a sweeper. It's going to make your life that much easier to same-sided hitters. Especially if you're like a fastball changeup guy, I would recommend adding a sweeper. It's going to be a completely different look, and you can kind of build your arsenal around it as you develop. And since you already have a changeup, that'll help you against lefties. Having a good sweeper can be extremely valuable against righties. Honestly, and if you're wondering if it fits with your arsenal, I would drop a comment and I can answer you based on your specific pitches, your age, and like where you're at right now. Now let's talk about if you're a good candidate, like physically, to throw one. What we've seen is people that are good at supinating, essentially this motion, they have more range. My elbow's kind of in a janky position. And then this would be pronation. I have more supination. So I have a bias to throwing breaking pitches because breaking pitches normally have a degree of supination. If you're one of those guys that has more range and supination, you feel better. Like you have a low spin efficiency fastball. Normally you're gonna pick up a sweeper easier. So those are some things we look at. If your arm slot is not overly high, you'll probably be a good candidate to throw a sweeper as well. Not to say you can't throw one from a high arm slot. I've seen guys do it. Another thing to take into account is if your command is good enough at this time to try to learn one. Like the command of your other pitches, if that's very poor, adding a sweeping slider, if you throw it right, is going to be tough at first because it moves a lot. So pitches that move a lot are generally harder to command. So, take inventory and be like, is my command good enough my other pitches to even try to add this at this time?
Forgot to add this part in the video, guys, but I created a Discord server, and it basically just has like all the knowledge and like tips that I don't really share on the other platforms. So it's more of like an exclusive group where you can ask specific questions, meet with me and the other pitchers that are in there, and then kind of gather information from all y'all's answers. So if you're looking to like dive in on more specific nuanced things, join the Discord. It's the first time I've announced it to the YouTube guys. We already have like 30 something people in there, but the link to add will be in the description. It's completely free, so check it out.
All right, we'll get into the fun stuff now of the grips and cues that we have to learn the sweeping slider. So we'll start off with the one that I'm most familiar with. This is the one that I throw. I average about 13 to 15 inches of glove side movement, and I'm normally a couple inches of positive carry on mine. And I throw mine about 78 to 83 if I'm ripping it that day. And I am on the two seam tracks here. And I have my fingers tucked, which is interesting because when I first tried to learn it, I was here. Just for some reason, because this was the grip they had told me, but I never took into account like what my ring finger was doing to clear, because the cue is that is used with a lot of people is this grip and throw it like a curveball. Throw it like a curveball. If you've already can throw a curveball, then like they'll give you this grip and say throw it like a curveball. A lot of guys get good results with that. So it's like you're thinking like topspin. It won't go down though, like a curveball normally. But all my breaking pitches, I have this tension here. Like when I throw my curveball, I have this tension here. I wouldn't throw it like this. When I throw my gyro, I have this tension here. The only pitch I don't would be fastball, where like I wouldn't tuck for fastball. So once I figured that out for me, I was able to take the cue of just throwing it like a curveball, and it started to take off that way for me. Also, the feeling of like this part of your wrist throwing it, like you're not overly manipulating anything. You're not trying to twist. You're not trying to do any weird stuff like this. It's almost like your wrist is kind of stiff and you're just throwing it like that. And you can play with the supination feel. Like I would sometimes, when I was first learning, like over exaggerate like a super supinated feel and just feel that. Because you're going to pronate still, but like it helps you feel, and you can tinker with like your wrist positioning and your feels to see what produces better results for glove side movement. Other options that I've seen people successfully throw in terms of grips are going to be at like the bottom of the horseshoe with a spike here. I've seen this one thrown well. I've also seen like a similar version of mine, but with a spike. So these spikes can come into play. And the cues with those, I'm not exactly sure, honestly, because I don't throw that one and I'm not super well versed in it. But I would mess around with that if the traditional one that I gave you at first is not giving you the results you'd like. You want to also have like a loose hand with this. I feel like this pitch does really well when you're feeling like you're just flicking it, because you allow the fingers to do their work and set the axis correctly, whereas when you choke it, it becomes tough sometimes, unless you've thrown it that way for a really long time successfully. So a feeling of looseness can really help with this, and start lines are really big. When you're first learning it, you really want to see the movement your eyes do. So what happens is you tend to like pull them because you just want to see that movement that way. But what that does is kind of develop a bad habit, and it's not like true movement. I think like the true test of like breaking ball or a sinker is if you can, at least for a breaking ball, if you can throw it to the arm side and have it still move. That's how you know you can throw it. And if you can throw a sinker to the glove side and still have it move, that's how you know like you're correctly throwing a pitch and you're not just overly manipulating it. So make sure your start line on your catch play partner, like if I'm a lefty, my start line most of the time is going to be on that left or his right side of his body, maybe even farther out, so I can see that. I'm not trying to like start it here and get it to go that way. I did that a ton when I was first starting to learn this pitch, because I was just scared, honestly, to throw it arm side because it felt like it wouldn't move. So the numbers to look for on this, I'll throw them up on the screen and explain them. They're different for lefty and righty in terms of the axis, but you're going to want it to be fully level on the clock. So 3-ish o'clock for a lefty, and then what would that be, 9 for a righty. And you're going to want the spin efficiency typically to be between like 20 to like 50. Those are the best results I've seen. The one I'm looking at here is 37. So somewhere in that range. If you're using a TrackMan, Rapsodos aren't great at picking up this pitch's metrics for whatever reason, because it uses like seam shifted wake, and Rapsodo isn't great at that. So be wary of that. But if you do have tech, those are some of the numbers you're going to want to look at to make sure that if you can consistently do that, you should be in a good spot. We already touched on one of these in terms of like the pitfalls of this pitch and learning it. That's honestly going to be a huge one, is the constantly throwing it to the glove side. Try to not do that all the time. And this kind of goes hand in hand. Trying to manipulate it with your wrist. Super common pitfall. Like you've heard like coaches like twist the doorknob or whatever. That's complete eyewash. Don't listen to that. You want to avoid getting passive with it and trying to manipulate it and losing intent. Granted, there's a time for just flicking it in catch play and just seeing the spin and like the gentle movement. But when you're throwing it, like you're throwing it. You're not switching your whole like delivery to throw the pitch to try to fit the shape. Like if you're a guy that throws from right here, like you're not gonna like now you're gonna start throwing the sweeper from down here. Like keep it there and trust your grip and your supination feel to orient the seams in a way that will move, not like independent variables. Okay, so we're going to talk about how to use it now. This is like one of my favorite parts of the video. Like we said, it's great at limiting damage versus same-sided hitters. So if you're a righty pitching to a righty, it's great there. And if you're a lefty throwing to a lefty, it's one of the most valuable pitches in the game. So it's going to be a great 0-0 pitch if you have good command of it. Because even if they swing, damage is pretty limited. A lot of times 0-0 counts have the most damage done on them in terms of all pitches. So if you can throw this pitch for a strike at a high clip, it's going to be lethal as an 0-0 pitch. It's also going to be great as a put-away pitch. 1-2, 0-2, great. 2-2, also great. Because in zone, it's not a put-away count, but you can still limit damage. So I like it almost in like, I like it in like every count, which is, you can't really say that about most pitches, but specifically can shine in those counts. in certain locations. Down and away is going to be the hot zone for same-sided hitters, right in that little down and away box corner. And obviously just starting off their hip, if you're trying to throw it as a strike, you're not trying to throw it down and away, you're just trying to throw it middle, but you don't really have to worry about it being middle because it's so good at limiting barrels if you throw it right that location doesn't matter a ton on it, which is the sick part of it. A lot of other pitches, their value like deviates a ton based on like where it's thrown in the zone, which is like one of the hardest things to consistently do. So let's talk about its performance versus opposite-sided hitters. It loses a lot of value here. It gives up a ton more barrels and gets a ton less whiffs. So just know that. Don't expect it to perform at the same clip that it does against same-sided hitters when you throw it. But there are some ways you can use it effectively against opposite-sided hitters. One is going to be 0-0 counts again, if you have good feel of it and you have a strong lateral moving pitch. Like when I throw a big sweeper to a righty 0-0, it's starting so far outside. They're going to take it like a lot of the time. And that's a free strike they don't get a swing off of, which is super valuable. It shifts the run value of the at-bat a ton. So that's a good way to use it against opposite-sided hitters. Another spot is going to be back foot for put away. Granted, you're going to need some decent pace on it to get away with that. That also brings into play damage. A lot of damage is done on lateral breaking pitches by opposite-sided hitters down in the zone. Not necessarily back foot, but like even like down in the zone, like ball, like a lot of damage is still done because those balls get ripped down the line quite a bit, and they get hard. They rarely get hit soft in that spot, so be aware of that. Another spot is up. If you're a guy that has carry on your sweeper, up like rail, top rail in the strike zone, it can be very effective there to opposite-sided hitter. A couple other things to note: the sweeper gets way better the more staggering horizontal approach angle, which is just like the angle that it's approaching the plate on this plane versus vertical being up and down. The simplest way to do that is throw from a lower arm slot or move your position on the mound. So like me as a lefty, I'm going to throw like favoring the first base side of the mound quite a bit against lefties, and I do it against righties as well. But that advantage really comes into play against same-sided hitters, maximizing your horizontal approach angle. And this pitch is like one of the highest pitches that will have that just because of the nature of the movement. If you're wondering like, oh, this pitch performs so bad against opposite-sided hitters and you're like looking at something else you can use, I would recommend learning a gyro slider. That's going to be super valuable, and I can make another video on that. I would say that's like one of the easiest pitches to learn also, and that can help your stats be a little bit more platoon neutral and help you be able to get more weak contact and whiffs from the opposite-sided hitters that your sweeper might not be able to get you. And to wrap us up, I just put together a little montage of some of my favorite sweepers from my professional baseball career, and kind of show you some of the results that I've gotten on the pitch as well throughout my career, and just show you it can be a difference maker. I think if the Cubs hadn't taught me this, I don't know if I would still be playing, honestly. Like it's been a huge game changer, and it's allowed me to really like assume a role of dominating left-handed batters. And this is a great weapon to do that, whether you're righty looking to dominate righties or lefty looking to dominate lefties, the sweeper is essential for that. That's going to be all for this one. Again, any questions, make sure to ask them down below. I will reply to everyone. This is a very tactical video. It's very specific, so there's some things that could get confusing. So make sure to ask the questions. I'll get back to y'all. God bless y'all. Thanks for watching.